The ballroom glowed, dripping with opulence, but her voice was a venomous whip. "Raise a glass to the gatekeeper who guards the real heroes," she spat into the mic, her wedding veil a mocking crown as 200 guests roared with cruel laughter. My chest burned, my scars screaming beneath my dress blues, each chuckle a knife twisting deeper into wounds no one saw. I stood frozen, heart shattered, betrayed by blood, my sacrifices reduced to a punchline. They thought they could erase me. They were dead wrong. I'm Colonel Elizabeth Harper. I'm 38 years old. And this is my reckoning. The laughter from that ballroom still echoed in my skull as I sat alone in my quarters at Fort Bragg, the air heavy with the scent of gun oil and regret. On my steel desk, a single envelope glared back at me, pristine white, my name embossed in sharp black ink, Colonel Elizabeth Harper. It wasn't an invitation, it was a grenade, pinned by one word in my mother Margaret's crisp cursive, presentable. 8 years. That's how long it had been since her voice crossed the 3,000 miles between us. Not a call when shrapnel tore through my shoulder in Iraq, not a whisper when I woke deafened in a field hospital, my ears ringing with the ghosts of that blast. Just silence, colder than the North Carolina winter outside. I traced the envelope's edge, my fingers trembling with a fury I hadn't let loose in years. Charlotte's wedding. To James Carter, of all people, the man I'd dragged from a burning Humvee, his blood soaking my hands. The irony was a fist to my gut. I could still hear my mother's last words, 8 years ago, at Dad's funeral, "You're no daughter of mine, choosing war over family." Charlotte had smirked then, her eyes glinting with victory. Now this envelope demanded I show up, polished and quiet, to watch her parade her triumph. "Liz, you going?" Captain Torres' voice broke the silence, his knock sharp against my door. He leaned in, eyes scanning the envelope. "That family's got no claim on you." I didn't answer. My scars ached, whispering truths they'd never understand. But I wasn't broken yet. The envelope sat untouched on my desk, its edges sharp as the memories it summoned. My quarters at Fort Bragg were a fortress of order, pressed uniforms, a locked trunk, the faint hum of a distant Humvee, but inside me, chaos roared. 8 years ago, I stood at my father's funeral in Savannah, a Marine colonel laid to rest with a 21-gun salute. I wore my dress blues, my captain's bars gleaming, but my mother, Margaret, saw only disgrace. "Take that uniform off," she hissed in the church parking lot, her pearls glinting like teeth. "You're shaming us, choosing war over family." I stood rigid, my boots rooted to the asphalt, as Charlotte sidled up, her voice a venomous whisper. "You're not one of us, Liz. You never were." The congregation watched, their murmurs a chorus of judgment. I didn't flinch, but each word carved a scar deeper than any shrapnel. I blinked, and the memory shifted. Iraq, 2015, 120 degrees, the air thick with diesel and dread. My platoon was pinned down outside Fallujah, bullets snapping like wasps. A rocket hit a Humvee 50 yards out, flames licking the sky. James Carter, a young lieutenant, was trapped inside, his screams cutting through the chaos. I didn't think. I ran, my boots pounding sand, my lungs burning. Shrapnel grazed my shoulder, blood soaking my fatigues, but I reached him. The door was molten hot, searing my palms as I yanked it open. James was half conscious, his leg mangled. "Hang on," I growled, dragging him 30 yards to cover, bullets kicking up dust around us. Medics swarmed, and as they loaded him onto a chopper, he grabbed my hand, his voice raw. "I owe you my life, Harper." I nodded, wiping his blood from my face, and turned back to the fight. Back in my quarters, my fingers clenched the desk, the pain of those days flooding back. Margaret never asked about Iraq, never cared about the Bronze Star pinned to my chest. At Dad's wake, she'd turned away when I approached, her wine glass a shield. Charlotte had leaned into her, whispering lies to cousins and aunts. Liz faked her war stories for attention. I overheard, my stomach twisting, but I stayed silent, my grief locked tight. The family home, once warm with Savannah summers, became a mausoleum of rejection. I left that night, driving 300 miles back to base, vowing never to return. "You're still here?" Torres' voice jolted me back. He stood in my doorway, his silhouette framed by the dim hall light. "That letter's got you spooked, huh?" I forced a bitter laugh, my voice low. "It's not the letter. It's what it means." Torres stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Your sister's marrying Carter, the guy you saved. And your mom's got the nerve to summon you like some stray dog." I didn't answer, but my silence was answer enough. "Don't let them drag you down, Liz," he said, his tone fierce. "You're a damn colonel. They don't get to define you." His words hung heavy, like smoke after a blast. I stared at the envelope, my scars pulsing with every heartbeat. They'd tried to erase me before. This time, I'd make them see. The Fort Bragg air was thick with the weight of betrayal, the envelope still a silent accusation on my desk. My scars throbbed, each pulse a reminder of the blood I'd spilled for others, only to be spat on by my own. Captain Torres had left, his words, "They don't get to define you," ringing hollow against the storm in my chest. I couldn't shake the memories of Dad's funeral, Charlotte's venom, or James Carter's blood-soaked gratitude. But something darker gnawed at me, a truth I hadn't dared face until now. My laptop hummed as I opened an encrypted email from Torres, sent an hour ago from his bunk 200 yards away. The subject line was stark: "You need to see this." Attached was a scanned document, its edges yellowed, stamped with the Department of the Army's seal. A 2016 whistleblower report, anonymous, accusing Colonel Elizabeth Harper of falsifying combat reports from Fallujah. The words hit like a gut punch. Harper exaggerated her role in the Humvee rescue to secure a Bronze Star. Her claims are fraudulent. My breath caught, the room spinning. I'd faced investigations before, routine for any officer climbing the ranks, but this was different. This wasn't a faceless bureaucrat. The report's language dripped with malice, its syntax oddly familiar. One word stood out, a linguistic fingerprint, irregardless. My heart stopped. Charlotte. She'd used that word in every high school essay, every smug email, every barb she'd thrown my way. I scrolled further, my hands shaking. Torres had run the document through a linguistic analysis tool, military grade, used to trace cyber threats. The results were damning, a 97% match to Charlotte's writing patterns, pulled from public records and old social media posts. She'd sent this poison in 2016, months after Dad's wake, when her whispers about my fake war stories had already turned family against me. The report triggered a classified inquiry that stalled my promotion to colonel for 18 months. My file was locked, my name dragged through whispers in Pentagon halls. No charges were filed, there was no evidence, because I'd never lied, but the damage was done. My career hung by a thread, my reputation a ghost. I stood, pacing the 10-foot square of my quarters, the concrete walls closing in. Charlotte hadn't just rejected me, she'd tried to erase me, to bury my truth under her lies. I remembered a family dinner in Savannah, 2015, before Iraq turned my world to ash. I was home on leave, still a captain, my uniform pressed sharp. Charlotte, barely 20, had leaned across the table, her wine glass glinting, and said, "Liz, you're not a hero. You're just a grunt who got lucky." Margaret nodded, her lips tight, as cousins averted their eyes. I'd laughed it off, my jaw clenched, but later, in my old bedroom, I found a note slipped under the door: "Stop pretending you're Dad's pride. You're a liar." Charlotte's handwriting, unmistakable. I burned it, but the words seared into me. Now, in the dim glow of my laptop, that note came rushing back. I opened a drawer, pulling out a faded photo from Dad's 60th birthday, the last time we'd all been together. Margaret stood rigid, Charlotte beamed, and I, in my service greens, looked like an outsider. I'd thought the pain of their rejection was the worst they could inflict. I was wrong. Charlotte's report wasn't just spite, it was sabotage, a calculated strike to steal the one thing I'd built, my honor. My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms, drawing blood. The rage wasn't enough. It was the heartbreak, raw and jagged, that nearly broke me. My own sister, my blood, had tried to destroy me to feel bigger. "You okay, Liz?" Torres' voice crackled through my phone. I'd called him without thinking, my voice hoarse. "She tried to ruin me, Torres. Charlotte. She sent that report." A pause, then his reply, steady but fierce. "I know. I dug it up because I saw your name in an old inquiry file. You didn't deserve that." I swallowed, my throat burning. "Why now? Why show me this before her wedding?" He sighed, the sound heavy with years of shared battles. "Because you're going, right? You need to know what you're walking into. She's not just your sister. She's your enemy." I hung up, my eyes locked on the envelope. Margaret's presentable wasn't an olive branch. It was a trap, and Charlotte was the blade. But I wasn't the girl they'd cast out anymore. I was a colonel, forged in fire, and I'd face them with the truth they'd tried to bury. The Fort Bragg night was heavy, the silence in my quarters broken only by the distant growl of a Black Hawk landing 500 yards away. Charlotte's betrayal, the 2016 whistleblower report accusing me of fraud, burned like acid in my veins. Her words from that Savannah dinner, "You're just a grunt who got lucky," echoed alongside Margaret's cold command, "Presentable," scrawled on the wedding invitation. My laptop screen glowed with the damning evidence Torres had sent, the 97% match to Charlotte's riding a guillotine over my career's neck. I'd survived Fallujah, dragged James Carter from a burning Humvee, but this was a war I hadn't trained for. My own sister had tried to bury me alive. I stood, my boots thudding against the concrete floor, and faced the mirror. My reflection stared back, Colonel Elizabeth Harper, 38, eyes hard as steel, scars hidden beneath my fatigues. The pain wasn't just Charlotte's lies or Margaret's rejection, it was the weight of 8 years erased, my sacrifices reduced to a punchline at a wedding I hadn't even decided to attend. But standing there, I felt something shift, a spark igniting in the ashes of my rage. I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. I'd go to Savannah, not to beg for their love, but to face the knives they'd plunged into my back. "Liz, you sure about this?" Torres' voice was steady as he leaned against my doorframe, his arms crossed, dog tags glinting under the fluorescent light. He'd stayed after our call, sensing the storm brewing in me. "That family's a minefield. You walk in, you're stepping on their terms." I turned, my jaw tight, and met his gaze. "I'm not walking in to negotiate, Torres. I'm going to show them who I am." He nodded, a slow grin breaking through. "That's the Harper I know. But don't let them make you bleed again. You're not just a colonel, you're a goddamn force." I opened my closet, pulling out my dress blues. The jacket was crisp, the Bronze Star and service ribbons pinned with precision, each one a testament to battles fought and won. I ran my fingers over the fabric, remembering the 300-mile drive from Savannah after Dad's wake, when Charlotte's note, "Stop pretending you're Dad's pride," had nearly broken me. Not this time. I laid the uniform on my bed, its weight a promise. I wasn't going to play their game. I'd wear my truth, let it burn their eyes. My phone buzzed, a travel alert from the airline app. I opened my laptop, fingers steady now, and booked a red-eye flight to Savannah/Hilton Head International, 280 miles south. Departure, 11:45 p.m. Arrival, 2:30 a.m. No fanfare, no announcement to base command. I'd move like a shadow, unseen until I chose to step into the light. The ticket confirmation pinged, a digital seal on my decision. I packed light, a duffel with essentials, my dress blues folded tight. The Fort Bragg wind howled outside, rattling the window, as if urging me forward. "You're really doing this," Torres said, watching me zip the duffel. His voice held no question, only respect. "What's the plan, Harper? You gonna call them out?" I slung the bag over my shoulder, my scars pulsing under my skin. "I'm not calling anyone out," I said, my voice low, resolute. "I'm showing up. That's enough." He clapped my shoulder, his grip firm. "Give em hell, Colonel." I nodded, stepping into the night, the envelope tucked in my pocket like a loaded gun. Savannah was waiting, and so was the truth I'd carry with me. The Savannah air was thick with jasmine and pretense as I stepped into the wedding venue, a historic mansion glowing under 500 twinkling lights. My dress blues hugged my frame, the bronze star on my chest a silent defiance against the envelope's command to be presentable. The 280-mile red-eye flight from Fort Bragg had left me raw, but my scars burned hotter than exhaustion. Charlotte's 2016 report, her venomous lies about my Fallujah rescue, and Margaret's cold rejection at Dad's funeral pulsed in my veins like a war drum. I wasn't here to reconcile. I was here to be seen. The ballroom was a sea of silk dresses and tailored suits, 200 guests buzzing with champagne-fueled chatter. I was ushered to a table in the corner, 20 feet from the head table, tucked behind a floral arch like an afterthought. My place card read, E. Harper, no rank, no acknowledgement. Margaret glided past, her beige gown pristine, her eyes skimming over me as if I were a smudge on the decor. Charlotte, radiant in white, held court at the center, her laughter sharp as glass. Then she took the microphone, her voice dripping honey over poison. "Let's raise a glass to my sister, the gatekeeper for the real heroes." The room erupted, laughter slicing through me like shrapnel. Margaret nodded, her smile a blade of approval. I gripped my water glass, knuckles white, my heart a furnace of rage. I stood, my chair scraping the hardwood floor, the sound cutting through the mirth. Eyes turned, but Charlotte pressed on, her grin widening. "Oh, Liz, don't be so serious. You're the silent sentinel of our family, guarding doors for greatness." More laughter, sharper now, like bullets pinging off armor. My vision narrowed, the room a haze of mocking faces. I could have walked out, let their lies win again. But then James Carter moved. The groom, polished in his dress uniform, stepped away from Charlotte, his face unreadable. He crossed the 30-foot ballroom, each step deliberate, boots echoing on the polished oak. The chatter died. Forks froze midair. Margaret's smile faltered, her wine glass trembling. James stopped one pace from me, his eyes locking onto mine. He snapped a salute, crisp and unwavering, the kind reserved for those who command respect. "Ma'am," he said, voice steady, carrying over the stunned silence. "Colonel Elizabeth Harper, the officer who pulled me from a burning Humvee in Fallujah. I'm alive because of her." The room gasped, a collective intake that sucked the air dry. Charlotte's face drained of color, her veil quivering as she swayed. The microphone slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a hollow thud. She collapsed into a chair, her white dress pooling like a surrender flag. Margaret stood, knocking over her glass, red wine bleeding across the tablecloth. "Elizabeth," she stammered, but the word choked in her throat. From the crowd, a retired general, his silver hair catching the light, rose slowly. General Hawkins, my old mentor from West Point, 15 years my senior. He saluted, his hands steady, eyes fierce with pride. Then another, a female major, her service ribbons gleaming. Then a third, a grizzled sergeant major, his nod a silent vow. 5 salutes in all, each one a crack in the facade Charlotte and Margaret had built. The room wasn't laughing anymore. It was recalibrating, rewriting the narrative they'd been fed. I didn't move, didn't speak. My presence was enough, my truth a weapon sharper than their lies. "Liz," Charlotte tried, her voice a broken whisper, but I raised a hand, silencing her. "You don't get to speak my name," I said, my voice low, cutting. "Not after what you did." The guests leaned in, sensing a truth too raw to ignore. James lowered his salute, his eyes never leaving mine. "I'm sorry, Colonel," he said. "I should have spoken sooner." I nodded, my scars burning under my uniform. The ballroom held its breath, waiting for my next move. I wasn't their gatekeeper. I was their reckoning. The Savannah mansion's glow faded as I stepped into the hotel lounge, a dimly lit sanctuary 2 miles from the wedding's wreckage. The air smelled of polished oak and stale coffee, the kind of place where secrets were whispered over $20 martinis. Charlotte's collapse and James Carter's salute still burned in my mind, the ballroom's stunned silence a fleeting victory. My dress blues felt heavier now, the bronze star a weight against my chest, not pride but a reminder of the cost. Margaret's choked, Elizabeth and Charlotte's failed apology lingered like smoke, but the truth of her 2016 whistleblower report, her attempt to bury my career, cut deeper than any public humiliation. I'd come to be seen, but I wasn't ready for their lies to follow me here. Margaret sat across from me at a corner table, her beige cardigan a pale imitation of the poised matriarch from the wedding. Her hands fidgeted with a napkin, shredding it into thin strips. "Elizabeth," she began, her voice soft, practiced, "we need to talk about last night. The press is circling. They're calling it a scandal." Her eyes darted, avoiding mine, as if my gaze could unravel her. I leaned back, my boots firm against the hardwood floor, my scars pulsing beneath my uniform. "A scandal?" I said, my voice low, sharp. "You mean the truth? That your daughter tried to ruin me?" Margaret flinched, her napkin tearing clean in half. "I didn't know about the report," she lied, her lips trembling. "Charlotte was young, jealous. She didn't mean," I cut her off, sliding a copy of the linguistic analysis across the table, the 97% match to Charlotte's writing glaring in black ink. "She meant every word, Margaret. She accused me of fraud, stalled my promotion for 18 months, and you let her." Her face crumpled, but I felt no pity. 8 years of silence, her rejection at Dad's funeral, her command to be presentable, they were bricks in the wall she'd built between us. "You erased me," I said, my voice ablade. "You let her call me a liar, a disgrace, while I bled for this country." Margaret reached for my hand, her fingers hovering, tentative. "I thought I was protecting the family," she whispered. "You were always so loud, Elizabeth. Too much for us." I pulled back, my chair scraping the floor. "I wasn't loud. I was alive. And you punished me for it." The lounge fell silent, a waiter pausing mid-step, sensing the storm. Margaret's eyes welled, but her tears were as empty as her excuses. She'd chosen Charlotte's lies over my truth, and no apology could rebuild what she'd burned. The door swung open, and Charlotte appeared, her wedding glow replaced by a gray sweater and hollow eyes. She slid into the booth, 3 feet away, her hands clutching a water glass like a lifeline. "Liz," she started, her voice cracking, "I went too far at the wedding. The gatekeeper thing, it was a joke." I stared, unblinking, my rage a coiled spring. "A joke?" I said, my tone ice cold. "Like the note you left in 2015, calling me a liar? Like the report you sent to the army, claiming I faked Fallujah?" Her glass shook, water spilling onto the table. "I was angry," she stammered. "You were Dad's favorite, always the hero. I just wanted space." "Space?" I snapped, leaning forward. "You didn't want space. You wanted me gone." I pulled the 2016 report from my folder, slamming it down. "You wrote this, Charlotte. You tried to destroy me because you couldn't stand my shadow." Her eyes widened, her breath hitching. "I didn't think it'd go that far," she whispered. "I just wanted to be seen." I stood, my boots echoing in the quiet lounge. "You were seen," I said, my voice steady, unyielding. "And so was I. But only one of us earned it." I turned to leave, but Margaret's voice stopped me. "Elizabeth, please. We can fix this." I faced her, my scars burning like a brand. "You don't fix a family that breaks its own. You live with the pieces." I walked out, the lounge door swinging shut behind me, leaving their pleas to dissolve in the air. Savannah Street stretched before me, 280 miles from Fort Bragg, but I was already further away than they could ever reach. The Savannah Hotel lounge's heavy air clung to me as I walked away from Margaret and Charlotte, their pleas dissolving like ash in the 2-mile stretch back to my hotel. The weight of Charlotte's 2016 whistleblower report, her cruel gatekeeper taunt at the wedding, and Margaret's hollow apologies burned in my chest, but James Carter's salute and the ballroom's stunned silence had shifted something inside me. I wasn't just Colonel Elizabeth Harper, the woman they'd tried to erase. I was a force, and I'd turned their betrayal into something bigger than their lies. The 280-mile flight back to Fort Bragg was a blur, my dress blues folded in my duffel, my scars pulsing with purpose. 2 days later, I stood at Savannah/Hilton Head International Airport, 10 miles from the city's jasmine-scented streets. A news van was parked 50 yards away, cameras poised like vultures. A young reporter, her microphone trembling, caught me at the terminal. "Colonel Harper, about the wedding, your sister's comments went viral. Care to respond?" My boots grounded me, the bronze star heavy against my ribs. I faced her, my voice steady, cutting through the morning humidity. "I'm not my family's failure," I said. "I'm their truth, made visible. They mocked me, but I've served my country while they buried theirs." The crowd hushed, phones recording, the video already spreading like wildfire. By nightfall, it hit 1 million views, headlines screaming, "Colonel Stan Shock's wedding." Back at Fort Bragg, I sat in my quarters, the concrete walls no longer a cage but a command center. My laptop glowed with emails from strangers, veterans, soldiers, civilians, who'd seen the clip. A female sergeant wrote, "You gave me courage to face my own family's lies." I didn't cry, but my throat tightened. Their words fueled me. I drafted a proposal for the Valor Protocol, a 3-tier system to protect military personnel from personal betrayal, legal aid, mental health support, and career safeguards. I emailed it to General Hawkins, my West Point mentor, now at the Pentagon, 400 miles north. His reply came in hours. "Harper, this is bold. I'm scheduling you to brief the Joint Chiefs." The Pentagon briefing room was a fortress of polished wood and American emblems, 20 feet of mahogany separating me from a dozen brass and suits. My slides clicked: retention losses from personal sabotage, unreported harassment cases, suicides linked to family betrayal. "We train soldiers for war," I said, my voice echoing off the walls, "but not for the knives at home. The Valor Protocol will shield them." A civilian analyst nodded, scribbling notes. Admiral Kessler, his silver bars glinting, raised a hand. "Colonel Harper, isn't this personal?" I didn't flinch. "All policy is personal, sir," I replied, "or it's just paperwork." The room stilled, the air thick with respect. The Undersecretary of Defense leaned forward. "We'll fund it," he said. My heart pounded, not with relief, but with victory. A week later, I spoke at a Veterans Hall in Raleigh, 60 miles from Fort Bragg. The room was packed, 30 soldiers, some in uniform, others in jeans, their eyes carrying the same scars I hid. A young private, barely 19, stood, her voice shaking. "My brother called me a coward for reporting my CO's harassment. I almost quit. Your video saved me." I stepped closer, my boots steady on the creaking stage. "Bring his name to the Valor Foundation," I said. "We'll fight for you." She exhaled, tears falling, and the room hummed with recognition. My phone buzzed, 2 million views now, the video a beacon for the silenced. I wasn't just a colonel. I was their voice, forged in the fire of betrayal, and I'd make sure no one else was erased. The Maine coast stretched wild and endless before my cliffside cabin, 800 miles from the Savannah mansion where Charlotte's lies and Margaret's silence tried to bury me. The Atlantic wind whipped my hair, carrying the salt of freedom, as I stood on the rocky edge, no longer bound by their betrayal. The Valor Protocol was now funded, a shield for soldiers like the private in Raleigh whose courage I'd sparked. My phone buzzed, a White House offer to chair an ethics board, 400 miles south in D.C. I deleted it without a second thought. My scars, earned in Fallujah's fire and Charlotte's 2016 report, no longer ached. They were proof I'd survived. I sat at a weathered desk, the ocean's roar filtering through the open window. My journal lay open, its pages filled with truths I'd once locked away. I wrote, I walked through their fire and found my own. The words were my anchor, heavier than the bronze star I'd left in a drawer at Fort Bragg. I didn't need their applause or Margaret's tears. I'd built a legacy, not in their eyes, but in the lives I'd touched, soldiers who'd seen my viral video, now at 3 million views, and found their voice. "Hey, Colonel," a voice called from below. It was Sarah, a local teenager who delivered groceries to my cabin, her bike leaning against a pine 20 feet away. "They're talking about you on TV again." I smiled, my first real one in years. "Let them talk," I said, my voice steady, free. "I'm done hiding." She grinned, pedaling off into the dusk. "This is my truth, you don't need their approval to shine. Live your truth, even when it burns." If my story moves you, like, share, and comment below. Have you ever stood up for your truth? I'm Colonel Elizabeth Harper, and I'm free.